Hi, I'm Chef Ben, and today on Cooking Cape Breton, we're going to make chicken parmesan, just like you'd get in a nice Italian restaurant. And to do that, the first thing we need to do is make a really delicious marinara sauce. So let's go over the ingredients really quickly. I have an onion, a couple cloves of garlic. We have some nice fresh basil. Fresh is the key there. We have, this is called tomato coulis, strained tomatoes. You may see it labeled as passata. And essentially all it is tomatoes that are pureed and then strained. So it's nice, nice and smooth, a nice consistency. There's not skin or seeds in here. It's just really good. This one specifically is imported from Italy. You can get this at pretty much any grocery store now. Just look where you see the canned tomatoes and stuff. Usually on the bottom. I prefer this to canned tomatoes, mostly because you can seal it back up. Just write a date on it, put it back in the fridge. It'll be good for 5-6 days. So then you can use it. If you don't want to use it all right away, you can use the rest later. Okay, so first things first, we're going to chop up our onion. We're just going to do this really quickly. Just cut the top off, cut the bottom off, peel it. Again, I said this in the last episode, it's much easier to peel an onion after it's already cut. This one is proving me wrong. So we're just going to do this quickly and cheat a little bit, take a chunk of the peel off. We'll do that with this one too. I wouldn't do that if I wasn't on camera right now, but that's okay. The magic of television. Okay, so we'll clean this up. And then we just want to dice this. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to evenly is the key here. You can dice it big, you can dice it small, but dice it all the same size. Okay? That's what's important, so that it all cooks evenly. And I'm not putting any pressure down on the onion. I'm just holding it in place. If you force the knife through or you're putting a lot of pressure down on the onion, really good chance you're going to cut yourself. Okay, now we're going to turn our burner on here. Just kind of on a medium high. And while that's heating up, I'm going to cut some garlic too. I'm just going to cut the ends off. Just like that. Give the cloves a crush. Try not to lose them. Just give them a little crush, pull the peel off, and we're good to go on these. Okay. So, always take a second to clean your board up. We have a saying in professional kitchens, a messy board equals a messy mind. So just try and keep tidy as much as you can. It'll help with the cooking process. It'll make everything a little easier. So we're just going to chop this up. Now, a lot of times, I'm just going to add some olive oil in here. A lot of times when you make tomato sauce, you may add sugar. And we may do that in here. Usually it comes down to the tomatoes. Sometimes they're a little more tart or a little more acidic than other times. But one thing you can do to kind of sweeten the sauce naturally is to caramelize your onions. So essentially just get them really nice dark brown. And that's going to add a natural sweetness by pulling the sugars out of the onions and turning them into caramel. And if we do this, and we do it enough, we may not have to add any sugar, and we'll definitely be able to reduce the amount of sugar we add to balance the acidity of the tomatoes. So I just have a little bit of olive oil in here, the onions, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon of butter. When we think of Italian food, we usually only think of olive oil in terms of fat. We don't often think of butter. But Italians, especially northern Italians, use quite a bit of butter. So you're going to see quite a bit of butter go into this dish. And that's okay, because more butter is more better, I promise. And the reason we're using butter and olive oil is that the olive oil is going to help prevent the butter from burning. If we just throw butter in here, the pan's going to get too hot, the butter is going to burn, but the olive oil and butter in combination should work well. Also, the flavor of the two together is very delicious. So already, our onions are softening, which is great. We just want to get a little color on them. That's what's really important here. In the meantime, I'm just going to pop this open, and it's ready to go. That's it. And it just smells of tomatoes. There's no other ingredients in here except a little bit of salt. So it's just pureed tomatoes and a touch of salt. And I'm actually going to add just a pinch of salt in here. And what that's going to do is help pull moisture out of the onions and help break them down. So they're going to soften quicker and they're going to caramelize a little quicker. And already I'm getting a little bit of browning on the bottom of the pan. That's perfect. That means the sugars are coming out of the onions. And if you wanted to, you could add the garlic and then the tomato now. But again, we really want to add as little sugar to this as possible. So we want to cook the onions till we get that nice caramelization. We can leave those alone for a second and get our basil prepped. Now basil and sage are two herbs you got to think about when you're doing this. They're soft, basil specifically, and if you just kind of come in and chop them like crazy, they're going to turn a little brown where you cut them, and they're going to get bitter. And we don't want bitterness in our sauce. We want this nice, sweet, flavorful sauce, right? So what we're going to do is actually just stack up 6, 7, 8 leaves, depending on their size. And we're going to put, the leaves have a shiny side and a dull side, and we're going to put the shiny side up, okay? And then what we're going to do is just make one slice right down the middle of the leaves, and then just with our knife. And this is an important thing to remember. When people chop or slice, they usually go like this or like this. That's not, it's not good on your knife, it's not good on your cutting board, but it's really not good on your food. Instead, you want a rocking motion. The tip of your knife should stay on the cutting board as much as possible, and you want to slice through the food instead of chopping down. And that's going to help prevent the basil from bruising and again getting bitter. So we're just going to slice through the basil. Okay, just like that. And if you're not comfortable cutting like this, the other thing you can do is just tear the basil, and then it's not going to really brown either. And that's it. We're going to leave these chunks fairly big. Okay. Onions are getting a little dark, so we're going to add in our garlic. Turn our pan down a little bit. And the garlic only needs to cook for about 45 seconds to a minute, just until you can smell it. A lot of recipes you'll see will say to add the garlic and the onion at the same time, but the garlic is always cut smaller than the onion, and it'll burn. And then you'll get this bitter, burnt garlic flavor in your sauce or whatever you're cooking, and you really don't want that. Okay, so our onions have a little bit of color on them. Our garlic smells delicious. Now we're going to add in our tomato. And we're just going to add all this in, and then maybe we'll rinse this out. Just, quarter cup of water maybe. Give it a shake, and then we'll throw all that in there too. Now we're going to add a little bit pepper, a little bit of salt. We're not going to add any sugar until this cooks for about 10 minutes. Then we'll come back, give it a taste, and we'll see how it goes. All right, our tomato sauce has been simmering away. I just moved it over to the stove. And the next thing we need to do to make our chicken parm is actually make our chicken. So I have 2 chicken breasts here, and all I did was cut them in half through the middle. You can pound them out with a meat mallet, hit them with a pan, whatever you want to do. But the quickest and cleanest way to do this is just to cut them right in half. So I'm going to set those aside for a second. What we're going to do is bread these. We're going to use what's called the standard breading procedure. So we have flour, egg, and breadcrumb. Okay, and that's how this is going to work. We're going to go in the flour first, and that's going to stick to the chicken, and then the egg will stick to the flour, and then the breadcrumbs will stick to the egg. Okay, I'm going to set this aside for a second. In the flour, I just have a little bit of salt and pepper, and this is gluten-free flour, but of course you can use all-purpose flour or whatever you'd like. Now in the breadcrumbs, I'm just going to take a little bit of parsley, chop it up. You want about a tablespoon of chopped parsley. And that's going to add some color, but it's also going to add a nice flavor to the chicken. So we'll mix this up. Beautiful. Doesn't that look nice? Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to throw on a pair of gloves just to keep my hands pretty clean here. We have a pan on the stove, and just like with the tomato sauce, we're going to use both olive oil and butter. So we're going to use about a tablespoon of butter, or olive oil, excuse me, and about a tablespoon of butter. We know our pan's ready when the butter starts to foam. Okay? So, chicken. And we're going to have an empty pan here too. Things are a little tight here, so I'm going to have to use front and back counter. So we're going to go chicken in the flour, get it nice and coated, and then into the egg. And whatever you're making, matzo sticks, chicken fingers, fish cakes, anything you want to bread, always use this procedure and you'll get a perfect breading every time. Okay, so we have flour, we have our egg, and now we're going to go into our breadcrumbs. And we're going to do this quick because our pan is almost ready here. So we have our other 2 pieces of chicken in the flour here, already in the egg, or next up the egg, sorry. Okay, now into the egg. We'll take our first 2 pieces, get these in the pan. And what we're doing now is we're going to sear the chicken. We're going to take it out, we'll put a little sauce on it, some cheese, and then we're going to put it in the oven. And what searing is going to do is it's going to give it a nice crispy outer texture, first of all, but it's also going to cut our cooking time down by 20%. So we'll sear this in the pan, and then it's going to go in the oven for about 10 minutes. That's it, and then we're ready to go. So about as long as it's going to take to cook our pasta. Then we can clean up our hands. Okay. Now we have another empty pan here. And with our sauce, we'll come back to that for a second. Now, I've already tasted this. I didn't add any sugar. It's sweet enough. And again, so you saw everything that went in here. It was the onion, garlic, butter, olive oil, and that tomato paste. And now we're going to throw our basil in. Okay? Just mix that up, and it's ready to go. And always kind of keep an eye on things when they're cooking, because your burner may not be cooking even, as you can see. So we'll just adjust this so we don't get burnt spots on our chicken and raw spots. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. So we're going to flip this over. And we're just going to put a ladle full of sauce in the bottom of our pan. And that's just going to prevent the chicken from kind of sticking to the bottom of the pan. We're going to flip these over. Look at that nice golden crust on the outside there. That is perfect. I'm just going to grab my Parmesan while that's cooking. Always be prepared, unlike me. You have to always be ready. Okay, so we just have a nice block of Parmesan. You see this in the grocery store. It'll have, it'll be usually in a triangle. You buy this, it'll last in your fridge for months. You can just grate it on a grater like this, or on the smallest setting on like your box grater. It tastes way better than the stuff that you get already grated. And it's more economical. This will be a little more expensive to buy up front, but you're going to get way more out of it than you will out of that jug. Okay, so our chicken is seared. We're going to pop it, and you can see both sides are nice and seared. Just going to put it in this pan. And this is one of my favorite dishes. Chicken Parmesan. Okay. So, next up, we're going to put a little bit of sauce on top of here. Make sure you get some of that basil in there. Beautiful. Now I like to take a basil leaf, just put it right on there. And that way when you cut into it, you're definitely going to get a nice piece of basil. So put that there. We're going to grate some Parmesan over this. And you can use the stuff that comes in the container at the store, but you're going to get much better flavor out of this. It's going to melt better. It's going to look better. Beautiful. Look at that. And now we have this nice ball of fresh Parmesan, or excuse me, mozzarella. And we're just going to pull some pieces off of this. Just like this. And I think I can hear the people in the control room drooling already. Here we go. So just nice big pieces of mozza. And this, if you're making pizza or something, this is what you're looking for. Just these nice big pieces you can pull off. This is what I use for lasagna. Pretty much anything I need mozza for. Melts better, looks better, tastes better. And you can find this in any grocery store. Okay. I think that's enough cheese. All right, so we're going to pop this in the oven, 350, 10 to 12 minutes. We'll check it, but it should be good. So we're going to go in the oven, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, it's been about 12 minutes since the chicken went in the oven, so let's pull it out and have a look. Look at that. Doesn't that look nice? Okay, let's cut into it. Take a look. Nice. Perfectly cooked. And all I'm looking for is just to make sure there's no pink left and that the chicken's nice and white. Okay, so we're going to turn our pan on here. We're going to finish the dish. So first things first, we're going to take some of our sauce, a couple ladles full. Actually, you know what? We're just going to dump it all in here. We have a few people to feed. I'm just going to heat this back up, and then we're going to add some pasta in. And I just have some fettuccine, or some linguine, excuse me, that I cooked. And we're just going to throw that right in here, just like that. And with that, we're going to add in just a little tiny bit of butter, a couple tablespoons. And we're going to throw in a bit of fresh parsley. Now the parsley is going to do two things. It's going to add color. It's going to make everything look really nice. But it's going to add this really nice fresh flavor. I finish all of my tomato-based pastas with a little bit of butter and a little bit of parsley. It really elevates it from just an okay pasta dish to something really special. Okay. Look at that. And you can use any kind of pasta. It doesn't have to be linguine. That's just what I have. Gorgeous. And again, we didn't add any sugar to this sauce at all. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to shut that off. Bring a nice pasta bowl over. Nice big portion of pasta. Now we'll bring our chicken back over. Look at this. And just half a breast is fine. So these two chicken breasts make enough for 4 people. Now we're going to add a little bit more fresh Parmesan, a little bit fresh cracked pepper, and we'll add, just to fancy it up a little, a couple leaves of fresh basil. And just like that, we have beautiful homemade chicken Parmesan that anybody will be happy to eat. I'm Chef Ben. This is Cooking Cape Breton, and you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Chef Ben Kelly, and you can check out these recipes and lots more at chefsnotes.com. Thank you so much. Have a great day. I'll see you soon.